Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into some really interesting historical documents.
Yeah, this stuff looks pretty juicy.
Yeah, it does.
It really does.
Um, Basically, we're going to try and figure out how U.S. intelligence agencies were operating during the Cold War.
Right.
Especially when it comes to anything related to Lee Harvey Oswald and just counterintelligence in general during that time.
Yeah, and you've given me a whole bunch of stuff here.
I have.
I mean, this stuff, it goes all the way from like the early 1960s to the late 1970s.
It's a huge time period.
Yeah, we got memos, we got dispatches, we got reports.
It's reports about everything.
Yeah, about surveillance investigations into these Soviet marriages with foreigners, alleged plots, double agents.
It really runs the gamut.
It really does. So I think we need to really focus in on a few of the most intriguing threads here.
I think so too. So just to give everybody listening kind of a roadmap for where we're going.
Okay.
We're going to start by looking at some memos from the early 60s that deal with Soviet citizens marrying foreigners.
Okay.
And how the State Department was handling those situations.
Right.
Then we're going to dig into reports about people who might have been connected to Lee Harvey Oswald, including this guy Maurice Halperin and his time in Cuba.
Interesting.
We're also going to be looking at these letters from this guy, Sergei J. Zorno, who claimed to have known what Oswald was going to do
Wow.
before it happened.
That's a bold claim.
Yeah. So then we're going to move on to surveillance of leftist groups in Japan
Okay.
and potential double agents in U.S. intelligence.
All right.
And then we'll kind of step back and see if we can connect all these different threads together to get a sense of the bigger intelligence landscape during the Cold War.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's start with those early 60s memos on Soviet marriages to foreigners and emigration.
Okay.
The very first question they asked is really direct.
Oh, yeah.
They want to know if the Soviet Union generally allowed its citizens to leave and go live with their spouses in other countries.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the State Department's answer is pretty interesting, too.
What did they say?
Well, one of the memos here says that they actually handled 724 visa applications
Wow.
between 1959 and December 1963 for Soviet citizens married to Americans.
So that would indicate that, at least officially, they were permitting it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like on the surface.
That's what it looks like.
Now, another point that they brought up was whether the Soviets let their citizens leave with their spouses at the same time.
Right. So no forced separation.
Exactly. And the State Department's answer to that seems to be that it generally happened.
Generally.
Yeah, but, there were some exceptions.
Interesting.
So I guess they weren't, automatically separating families or anything, but, it's the Soviet system, so who knows what was really going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. A lot of red tape, I imagine.
Yeah, probably. So another thing they wanted to know was how long a Soviet citizen usually had to wait to get a visa.
Oh, man. Yeah, that must have been a real concern for these couples. I mean, you're married and you're just waiting to be together.
Yeah, can you imagine? And the estimate that they gave was about 4 to 7 months.
Okay.
But the memo also says that some cases took even longer.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine the bureaucracy back then.
Oh, yeah.
Now, one document looked at 26 specific cases of Soviet citizens marrying foreigners, and there were some really revealing patterns and exceptions that came out of that.
Such as?
Okay, so out of those 26 cases, only 4 of the Soviet wives actually left the USSR with their husbands.
Oh, wow. Only 4.
Yeah, and there was one case involving an Italian communist who married a party member.
Oh, okay.
So then maybe they had different rules for that.
Yeah, that was probably a special case.
Yeah. And then 3 cases had these really long delays in getting the visas. So, even though they said it was generally allowed,
Right.
the reality seems to be that they weren't really all that keen on letting their citizens leave.
Well, yeah, especially if those citizens had knowledge of Soviet society.
Right. They probably didn't want them spilling the beans.
Exactly. Or maybe it was just a way to discourage people from leaving in the first place.
Yeah. The whole process just sounds incredibly difficult.
Yep, it does.
There was this one case that was particularly striking.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
This Western husband didn't want to leave the Soviet Union without his wife.
Right.
And they basically told him that they couldn't even start processing her exit application until he left.
Wow. So basically they were holding her hostage.
It really does sound like that.
Yeah, it's a very stark reminder of the power that the Soviet state had over its people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So we also have this memo from July 1963 that summarizes info on Soviet women married to foreign nationals.
Okay.
And it actually gives us some names and dates of marriage and things like that.
Interesting. So who are some of the individuals mentioned?
Let's see. Well, we got Natalia Borisova, who was married to an Italian communist.
Okay.
Lilia Leovina, married to an American named Alan David Packler.
Okay.
Natalia Liu, who married Gunnar Nordenstam.
Uh-huh.
And then there's Tamara Serebrennikova, who was married to somebody codenamed A Promise.
A Promise. Interesting.
Yeah, it's very cloak and dagger.
It is.
But it's interesting to see the actual names of some of these people.
It is. It kind of humanizes it a little bit.
Right.
You know, instead of just being abstract cases.
Yeah, exactly.
You see, these were real people caught up in the system.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Maurice Halperin now.
Okay. Maurice Halperin.
Yeah, so we have this communication from December 1962, and it gives us his address in Havana, Cuba.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and what makes this really intriguing is that the memo mentions the source had been exchanging Christmas cards with Halperin for several years.
Oh, wow. So they had a personal connection.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Uh-huh.
But here's the thing. Halperin was actually in Moscow in September 1961 as part of an official U.S. delegation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so less than 2 years later, he's living in Castro's Cuba.
That's quite a shift.
It is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to wonder what was going on there.
Right. Was he recruited?
Yeah. Or did he just, decide to switch sides?
Did he defect? I mean, that's the kind of thing that intelligence agencies would have been super interested in.
Absolutely. I mean, this is right in the heart of the Cold War.
Right.
Tensions are high.
Yeah, and the document actually says they were trying to track his activities and associations.
Oh, so they were definitely keeping tabs on him.
Oh, yeah, he was on their radar for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's fast forward to 1978.
Okay.
And these letters from Sergej Tsurnono, this is a really strange case.
Yeah, I was looking over these letters.
They're pretty out there.
Yeah, so he's writing these letters to the British ambassador in Washington, D.C.
Right.
And he's claiming that back in August 1963, in Sofia, Bulgaria,
Bulgaria.
yeah, he gave the U.S. government information about Lee Harvey Oswald's plan to kill President Kennedy,
He says he told this to an American consul.
possibly named Tom Blackshear.
Yeah, possibly.
So that's a pretty big deal to come out and say that years later,
It is.
especially considering what happened.
Yeah, and it gets even weirder because he also talks about being interrogated by immigration officials in London.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in July 1963.
So like a month before.
Yeah, just a month before he claims he talked to the consul in Bulgaria.
Huh.
And he says that they showed him a newspaper article with his name in it.
Hmm.
And they questioned him about Oswald.
Okay, so clearly he was already on their radar.
He was, yeah. And then there's this detail about a steak dinner.
Oh, yeah. What was that all about?
Okay, so he claims that while he was being questioned by the Secret Service,
Right.
a police officer in uniform brought him a steak dinner.
What?
You know, it's just such a bizarre detail.
It is very strange. I mean, was it some kind of bribe or...
Was it an intimidation tactic?
Yeah, you have to wonder.
It's just so strange.
It is.
And then he writes more letters later talking about being harassed by U.S. authorities.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he even claims his life is in danger.
Wow. So he's really escalating things here.
Yeah, he is.
That's scary.
Yeah, and in these letters to the British Embassy and to this guy, John H. Price in Sacramento,
Mm-hmm.
he talks about these threats involving anesthesia,
Anesthesia.
poison, and even being framed for murder.
Wow. He really thought they were out to get him.
It seems like it, and he claims that FBI agents and the police were trying to silence him about the assassination.
So the question is, did anyone believe him?
Right. I mean, were these claims investigated?
Yeah, these documents don't really tell us.
They don't, but the fact that these letters exist and were circulated,
Right.
it suggests that somebody was at least paying attention.
Yeah, they were on somebody's radar. That's for sure.
Okay, so let's move on to Japan now.
Okay.
And this investigation into the Hiren.
The Hiren.
Yeah, so this was an anti-Vietnam War organization, and a dispatch from 1967 says that it followed fundamental communist principles.
Oh, so that would have been a red flag right there.
Oh, yeah, definitely during the Cold War.
Absolutely.
Anything that even smelled like communism was going to get attention.
Especially from U.S. intelligence.
Especially from
Either
them.
way.
And what's really interesting here is how much support this group had.
So it wasn't just a fringe movement.
It wasn't the dispatch mentions these key organizers, Makoto Oda and Kupo Kenosuke, but it also says that they had a ton of support from intellectuals and cultural figures in Japan.
Really? Like who?
We're talking writers, professors, artists, even religious leaders.
Wow. So it was a pretty diverse group.
It was, and a lot of them had been members of the Japanese Communist Party.
Oh, so there were some definite communist ties there.
Yeah, and you can imagine how that would have looked to U.S. intelligence.
Oh, yeah. I mean, were they being influenced or even directed by communist nations?
That's what they would have wanted to know.
Right. Was this a genuine grassroots movement or was it something more sinister?
Right.
Yeah.
And Bahrain wasn't just talking, they were actively protesting.
So they were making their presence known.
They organized demonstrations, they were on TV, they even published ads in newspapers.
Wow. So they were really trying to get their message out there.
Yeah, and that kind of public engagement would have definitely caught the eye of intelligence agencies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they would have been seen as a potential threat.
Right, especially with those communist connections.
Right.
And they also had international connections.
Oh, really? With who?
Yeah, the dispatch mentions contacts in Mongolia,
Okay.
the USSR, France,
Yeah.
and even South Vietnam.
Wow. So they were really plugged into the global anti-war movement.
They were, and some big names are mentioned like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir.
Wow. Yeah. Those are some influential figures.
Yeah, and the fact that they were connected to Bahrain would have definitely raised some eyebrows.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, this is right at the height of the Cold War.
Yeah.
And U.S. intelligence would have been very concerned about any potential coordination between these groups.
Especially if there was any Soviet involvement.
Right.
Now, there's also this incident with U.S. Navy deserters who were seeking refuge in Japan.
Oh, wow.
And Bahrain actually helped them.
Really?
Yeah, which really shows how strongly they opposed the war.
Yeah, I mean, they were willing to put themselves at risk to help these guys.
Right.
That's a pretty strong statement.
It is, and you can imagine how that would have looked to U.S. intelligence.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bahrain would have been seen as a serious problem at that point.
Aiding and abetting the enemy.
Exactly.
So we also have this dispatch from December 1967 from Tokyo.
Okay.
And it talks about an alleged double agent code named Rybat Mfasha Red Top.
Rybat Mfasha Red Top. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
And what's the connection to Bahrain?
Well, this dispatch says that Rybat Mfasha Red Top was connected to Bahrain and those Navy deserters.
Oh, wow. So this could be huge.
Yeah, and the dispatch emphasizes just how sensitive this information was.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they're using a code name like that,
Right.
it tells you this is top secret stuff.
Yeah, we're talking clandestine activities, hidden identities, espionage.
Yeah, and the fact that this person was connected to both an anti-war group and U.S. military deserters,
Right?
I mean, that just raises all sorts of questions about manipulation and spying.
Right. Who is this person working for?
Exactly, were they playing both sides?
And what were they trying to achieve?
Yeah, unfortunately, this dispatch doesn't give us a lot of details about Rybat Mfasha Red Top,
No, it doesn't.
which I guess just makes it even more mysterious.
It does, yeah.
All right, so where do we go from here?
Okay, let's take a quick detour to Minneapolis in 1962.
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's this memo about a Cuban refugee group there.
Okay, a Cuban refugee group.
Yeah, and the reason this group is interesting is because of the three individuals who are mentioned.
Okay, who are they?
Ernesto Rodriguez y Moreno,
Hi.
Laureano Batista Faya,
Uh-huh.
and Victor Ponick.
All right, and what do we know about these guys?
Okay, so Moreno owned a gas station in Florida.
Okay.
Batista Faya was the son of a prominent banker from the Batista regime.
Interesting.
And Panique was a former July 26th commander, and he was reportedly living in Cuba at the time.
So this is a pretty diverse group with some interesting connections.
Yeah, and the memo actually asks for an expedited check on these guys.
Oh, really? So they were definitely persons of interest.
They wanted to know if they could be agents or sources.
Yeah, this is right after the Cuban Revolution.
Right.
So tensions were high, and U.S. intelligence would have been very interested in any Cuban exiles who might be able to provide information or even carry out operations.
Right, maybe even sabotage or something.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
Okay, so the last thing we're going to look at is a report from 1961
Okay.
about the International Institute for Peace.
The International Institute for Peace.
Yeah. So this report came about because of a letter that was sent from Vienna
Okay.
to Naki leaders in Israel.
Naki leaders in Israel. Interesting.
Yeah, and this International Institute for Peace was kind of seen as a suspicious organization during the Cold War.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, a lot of people thought it was a front for the Soviets.
Oh, wow. So like a propaganda tool or something?
Exactly.
Right.
And this report lists a bunch of people from Latin America who were connected to the Institute:
From which country?
Argentina, Colombia, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and El Salvador.
Okay, so pretty wide range.
Yeah, and these people held positions in academia, politics, and the arts.
So they were influential people.
Yeah, and some big names are mentioned, like Capimilio Aragones from the 26th of July movement in Cuba,
Oh, wow.
and Dr. Martha Freyd from the Movement for Peace and Sovereignty of the Peoples.
Okay, so these are people who are actively involved in leftist movement.
Exactly, and that's why U.S. intelligence would have been concerned about this institute.
Yeah, I mean, were they trying to spread pro-Soviet sentiment?
Right, were they trying to influence policy or even recruit people?
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
So we've looked at a lot of different documents today.
We have.
And what are some of the key things that stand out to you?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway for me is just how broad the scope of U.S. intelligence operations was during the Cold War.
Yeah, it really was everywhere.
They were monitoring anti-war movements.
Right.
They were tracking people with even the slightest connection to the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, like they were casting a really wide net.
They were looking at international marriages, refugee groups.
Right, anything that could potentially be a threat.
Exactly, and it just shows how much effort they were putting into gathering information.
And analyzing it.
Yeah, they were trying to understand what was happening all over the world.
Because it felt like everything could be connected.
Right, one little event could trigger a chain reaction.
Exactly.
And they wanted to be ready for anything.
So we've also uncovered some pretty big questions today.
Yeah, like what happened with Sergei Gizorno?
Right, did anybody believe his story?
Yeah, and what about Bahirin?
Right, were they really just an anti-war group or were they something more?
Yeah, and what about those Cuban refugees in Minneapolis?
Right, did they end up working with U.S. intelligence?
And what about the International Institute for Peace?
Right, what was their real purpose?
Yeah, these are all questions that we need to keep digging into.
Yeah, I mean, these documents are just a starting point.
Exactly. There's so much more to uncover.
So as a final thought, I think it's important to remember that these historical records really highlight how pervasive intelligence operations were during the Cold War.
Yeah, I mean, they were everywhere.
It was a different world back then.
It was.
And I think it's a good reminder that there are always these hidden forces shaping the events that we study.
Right, we only see the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. And it's our
Awful.
job to try and understand these complex narratives.
Yeah, it's fascinating work.
It is.
It really is.
So thanks for bringing these documents to light.
My pleasure.
I think we've got a lot more digging to do.
Oh yeah, this is just the beginning.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.